So, a big part of learning how to read was reading easy books like Dr. Seuss books. They were fun, funny, and were rhyming, which just made it a lot easier to read. Green Eggs and Ham was my first book that I read by him. Now, what made him interesting was that he hated how a lot of kids have learned how to read. It shows a picture, and then below it says apple, or that kind of thing. You know those. There's always posters of them in your kindergarten classroom. He hated that, and he wanted kids to learn how to read by rhyming, which was a lot easier to hear. In the year 1904, on March 2nd, in Springfield, Massachusetts, Theodore Seuss Geisel was born, otherwise known as Dr. Seuss. In 1915, World War I started in Europe. And even though America wasn't involved in the war yet, their ally Britain was fighting against Germany. Therefore, in America, Germans weren't too popular, even if they were American, yet from German descent, like Theodore Seuss Geisel had been. So he was bullied a lot, which made him start to feel a little more lonely and also hate war a lot more, but we'll get to that later. He started drawing cartoons when he was young, and thought that it was really fun to just draw random animals. One time he even went to the zoo and got inspired and started drawing really weird things. He started going to university in New Hampshire, and he wasn't that good at school, but everyone thought he was funny, and how he paid off his rent for his apartment was by drawing pictures. Eventually, he was hired to make a cartoon for bug spray called Flit. That made him super famous, and he ended up getting a whole bunch of money for it. Eventually, it was the 1940s, and he needed to make wartime propaganda. This was very common for most cartoonists at that time. He was even hired by the military to start making cartoons for them as well. A lot of Looney Tunes cartoons back then were mostly propaganda that he made, such as Private SNAFU. Basically, this soldier that didn't know anything about war and was lazy and careless. They were very funny cartoons, and I recommend you look them up. But they made him really famous, and everyone really liked him. It definitely got more people to join. He even won 2 Oscars for it after the war was over. In 1949, he was just, the war was over by now, so he didn't know whether to start making movies or to start making books. Of course, we all know what he chose. In 1950, he wrote a book called Yertle the Turtle. Yertle the Turtle was about a turtle dictator who wanted to be king of everything, but one turtle rebelled by burping. And what he wanted was for no wars to ever start again, and he wanted kids of the future to know this. he went to Japan a little while later when he realized that there were kids there and they weren't the bad people. Before this, he had been sort of for the idea of Japanese internment in the United States. Now that the war was over, though, he realized that a person's a person, no matter how small, or how Japanese. It's not about pro-life, and he was actually pro-choice. Oxford was the college that he went to afterward. He wanted to finish up his education, and he did. He got his diploma at Oxford. Now, he then decided he was going to write a bunch more children's books, like Cat in the Hat, and as well as The Grinch, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which were very famous, and a lot of people really liked them. He also wrote Green Eggs and Ham, which was a very good book for children to learn how to read. A lot of kids learned how to read from that book. In fact, it only had 50 words in it, making it super easy to learn. His books started becoming international, and he had to write books in different languages. A lot of people around the world really enjoyed How the Grinch Stole Christmas, and that made him become famous all over the world. He had books in Chinese, Russian, as well as Japanese, and German, and Spanish. Sadly, his wife died, and he was really sad about it, but pretty soon he got married again. He got married to someone named Audrey Diamond, who really liked his books. He wrote a book called The Lorax about environmental issues such as cutting down trees and pollution. That book became really famous, however, not very popular among loggers, who made a book kind of dissing the book. He also wrote this book called The Butter Battle Book. It was about two towns who got in an argument of how to butter their toast. Eventually, they got into a huge arms race, and the book was very similar to the Cold War. In fact, it was written during the Cold War. Soon after the book was published, the Soviet Union collapsed, and the Berlin Wall was knocked down. So the book did end on a cliffhanger, but they knew how it ended. In 1990, he wrote the book Oh, the Places You Go, which was really popular among graduating students. Sadly, in 1991, Dr. Seuss passed away. He was the first person to win a Pulitzer Prize for children's literature. He became famous across America and also worldwide, and helped the way kids learned how to read. He made it a lot more fun to learn how to read, and many schools take an entire day just to stop whatever they're doing and read. Because as Dr. Seuss once said, you could find magic wherever you look. All you need to do is open a book. Thank you for watching this presentation, and bye.